Hello and welcome to turn 3 of the Operation Meridian 1 scenario of Wing Leader Eagles 43 to 45 by Lee Brimacombe Wood. Just before we go on with turn 3, there was a couple of other things I need to do in turn 2 which I forgot to do. The first is, both of them are to do with the combat actually. If we just zoom in here. So, the Corsair, of course, went into combat unalerted, but being attacked automatically alerts the Corsair. So that is now alerted. This means that it can move a lot further. It moves at a different point in the turn. And also it will be able to transmit that alert status to every other squadron in the radio net, and the radio nets for the British side are split between the sweep and the escort squadron. So the sweep squadrons all talk to each other, the escort squadrons all talk to each other. These are sweep, so therefore this information can also be relayed, for example, down to the Firefly squadron down here, who are also on sweep. And also the wing leader here will be able to also pass information on to the Corsair behind, which is part of the wing, including things like tally information. So anyway, so I've done that bit. The second bit is that at the end of a combat between fighters, there is the possibility of a dogfight. So dogfight is a choice on either side. So if both sides choose to be a dogfight, then it's a dogfight. If both sides choose to be not a dogfight, then it's not a dogfight. It's only if one side wishes and the other side doesn't. Now, certainly, I think for the British side, it's a very good idea to make it a dogfight. The Corsair is actually much better than the Tojo in turn combat, and that's what you do in dogfights. Also, it kind of takes that Tojo squadron out of the combat, out of affecting the bombers, etc. So it's a good idea to just do that. I think on the Japanese side, I don't think it's a very good idea to do a dogfight, because you want to kind of get through these. However, the Tojo squadron does have an advantage in that it is a veteran squadron and it does have an expert. So maybe it should be a good idea if we can clear out these Corsairs very quickly. The only thing is the Corsair, if it was disrupted, I think it might be a good idea. As the Corsairs, they've taken 2 losses, but they're still not disrupted. So I think the Japanese would say no and the British would say yes. In that case, it's a competitive dice roll. So that dice roll is 1 die each, and then you add the basic speed of the each side aircraft, and then also add 1 if it's a veteran squadron, or -1 if it's green. So in this case, the basic speed of the Tojos versus the Corsairs, and I think the basic speed is actually modified by the dive marker. So for the Japanese, that would be a 7. And for the British, it would be a 6. But there's also a +1 for the Shoki, the KO-44 as well, because it's a veteran squadron. So it's +8 versus +6, which is pretty much a +2. So the Japanese have a +2. So if we just roll some dice here, and the Japanese roll +2 is an 8, so they're going to win it. But let's just roll the Americans anyway, the British anyway. So that's a basic 4 versus 8. So the Japanese have it, and it isn't a dogfight. Okay, so that's something we had to do just for turn 2. So now we can get on with turn 3. So turn 3, of course, starts with the setup values, setup phase, but there is no setup to have, and we're on to the tally phase. So in the tally phase, raider player first attempt to tally enemies. And in fact, not only should this squadron be alerted by the attack, but should also automatically have a tally onto the attacking squadron there from last turn. Okay, so raiders first. So tallies. We automatically have one here. The wing leader here can transmit to this Corsair this tally. So this Corsair could actually automatically tally at this point as well. Also, he is alerted, as is the Firefly down here. So they're alerted that there are Japanese here. And also we will put a tally onto the Shoki veteran squadron here. So both of these can see. The Firefly here, I think 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see if there can be any tallying there. I think we'll probably go for the higher squadron here. So it's on a 4. Not sure there's any particular modifiers that we need to worry about for the tally. Let me see. So if they were attempting to tally up here, then they would get a bonus, but this is a different squadron. Yeah, I don't believe there is anything that's going to affect it. So it's a straight roll, and we need to roll greater. So it's 4 spaces. So we need to roll a 5 or a 6 for the Firefly. So let's have a look. And we do get a tally. So the tally marker moves across there. And can anybody see anybody? So the TBFs are too far away. However, this Hellcat, 1, 2, 3, can certainly try and see that Shoki. It can't be told about it, but it certainly could see it in its own right. So looking at the modifiers again, I don't think very much is affecting anything. It is a veteran squadron, so there is a +1 on the dice. So 1, 2, 3, and there's a +1, so we need 3 or more for that Hellcat to spot. And he doesn't see it. Okay, so the escort doesn't get to see it. We do have another Hellcat here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't get the +1 because it's not veteran, so we need a 5 or a 6. Again, no, they're very sleepy at the moment. Just moving some counters here. And beyond that, I don't, again, 1, 2, 4, 5. The TBF could possibly spot that. Let's go for that, I think. So this is another veteran, so we need a 5 or a 6. Okay, so actually I've just seen it is a bomber, so therefore bombers don't tally, I don't think. Yeah, so that was a useless roll. So the TBFs don't roll full tallies, and they don't even have an alert status, even though some of the markers do here. We're back to this Corsair here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's got no chance of seeing it. So that's everything on the Raider side. So on the Defender side, we can actually remove this speed marker now, because that was last turn's. So we have the KI-44, which can tally a squadron. I think we might try and tally this squadron rather than one here. So that's 1, 2, and I don't think there's any modifiers, so we need anything but a 1. It rolls a 1. Okay, so so this unit's not tallying. This isn't a wing leader, so therefore he's not going to order a tally onto that squadron. If that was a wing leader, we could automatically tally the same squadron that he has. This guy, though, is independent, although being in formation or with the other squadron, it's not subordinate necessarily to it. So therefore, this guy kind of isn't looking in the right spot. Probably started to turn around on his vector. So we're down to over here, these guys here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3 to tally that Corsair. 1, 2, 3, 4 to tally the Firefly. I don't really want them to get mixed up here, so we're going to try and tally the Firefly here. 2, 3, 4. So has an expert but isn't a veteran squadron. So it's just a straight roll. So we need a 5 or a 6. No. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just on a 6, the second squadron of Hayabusa. No. So they don't see it. Let's remove that dive marker as well. So unfortunately for this turn, the veteran Shoki Tojo squadron is kind of on their own, and this Firefly has the ability to react here, but the Japanese don't. I think that's all for our tally phase. Yeah, that's all. So we're on to squadrons move, and a move order is first dogfight. We don't have a dogfight. Then escorts. So the escorts are the Hellcats and the Corsair up here. So it's going to get a little bit crowded with the wing displays on board, but 2 hexes here. And that, let's take this. I'll just do the movement off camera, and then we'll restart again. Otherwise, it might take a while. Right, so I've done the escorts, which are still unalerted, and the bombers as well. So they've all moved, and we're now on to the the unalerted fighters, if there are any, but we've all moved. Actually, we haven't. No, yep, they all are. All unalerted fighters were escorts anyway. So we're now in alerted fighters in initiative order. Yeah, just holding up there. Back in the tally phase, I might have wanted to do some squadron splitting here. So the wing leader here could, I think, attempt to split into two flights, or could order this Corsair to split into 2 flights. Interesting. Maybe not. Maybe not. However, I think this Tojo squadron, Shoki squadron here, I think should split. Yes, I think it's got the upper hand on this Corsair, and some of the aircraft could go off and do more interesting things. So I'll just arrange that to happen. Yeah. Right, I've done that. So the Squadron P has been replaced by Flight H and I. Everything is retained across the two flights. It's just that the expert has to stay in one of the flights rather than both, but they're both veterans. The ammo is status is shared as well. So they're both now in this square with the Corsair, and the Pima squadron is actually out of the game. You can't actually bring two flights back into a squadron again. They must stay as flights from now on. Now, the only thing remaining is, once that's sorted out, is that both these Corsair squadrons had tallied this squadron. So now there is a choice of what you want to do with those tallies. So I think what we will do is we will switch the H tally across to here, which means that this Corsair squadron is going to follow this one. That Corsair is going to follow this flight. It does, however, mean that this guy gets off scot-free, but however, he's going to just be circling this turn because he hasn't actually seen the combat, surprisingly. Okay, so yeah, I think we'll stick with that. So yeah, just interrupt on that side. Right, so initiative order would be the lowest altitude first. This would be the Firefly here. However, the Firefly has tallied this this Japanese unit, so he has the ability to delay his movement to just after that that enemy squadron moving. So he can defer his movement for the moment. So the next lowest is this KL-43 here, which is going to go into this spot, and we'll start circling on his vector. So that's all his movement at the moment. He's effectively patrolling the skies, expecting something to come into vision, as he's been told by the controller, the GCI, that this is where he should be. Right, the KR-43 here again is oblivious to any tallies, so he again moves into here and will start circling. Here we go. Right, so now the Firefly can move. So he's alerted. That's actually his display there. So he has 3 movement points. Now it's interesting. See, now what he may want to do is climb up here and engage, or what he may want to do is actually just completely ignore these Japanese fighters, dive into cloud, and then head off down here to do a strafing run. I think its primary job is to actually defend to clear the way, so I think he should climb. So we can go 1, and we put a climb marker on him. 2, and then 3 here. Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do. And hopefully next turn these Hellcats will see what's going on here. So yeah, that's the Firefly done, and we are then left with the KI-44s and the Corsair. So this unit will move last because nobody has tallied it, and it's at the highest altitude. So these units will move first. So this is where it can get quite complicated in the game, is who's tallied who. So we're at the same height here. So we then have to look at a test of speed. Right, I've just checked the rules actually, and to be honest, the dive markers from last turn shouldn't have been removed. until those units have actually completed their next move. So this was a dive. He hasn't changed altitude, so that dive does disappear. This dive, however, or the dives for each of these, is not removed yet. So effectively they have initiative over that Corsair. So even though both have tallied, now this, so H has tallied this Corsair and has advantage. I Corsair has not tallied anybody, so he doesn't want to tally that squadron anymore. However, in a split, he doesn't get to try a tally, if you see what I mean. So he is. So in this case, the Corsair will move. This Corsair will move first, and this is Corsair H. Corsair H has tallied one of these. Let me see now. So anyway, certainly this Corsair will move first. So I think the Corsair will I think possibly stay in this hex. Actually, I don't think he will move about at all. No, he will circle. Yeah, I think he will circle. Yes. Or maybe he might want to actually move through and turn. So yes, I think he will go 1, 2, and then 3. This means that the tally, so he had the tally on H, but H also has the tally on him and did have the initiative. So H here then moves, and I think will turn 1, 2, 3, and because he didn't dive, that dive marker goes away. So we do have a combat here. Then this Corsair has a tally on this KF-44, but the same is not true. So this Corsair can defer to the I for flight moving. So this is free to move really, because he's off his vector now. So I think what he might want to do is dive through if possible and see if he can get amongst this area and get a tally. So we will move 1, 2. Do we want to actually be behind here? Yeah, I think so. So 1, yeah. 1, 2, 3, and he gets a +1 is a 4. So he's dived straight through. But he hasn't seen anything to dive on. He's just thinking that's a good idea. And the Corsair can follow now. So he will move 1, 2, 3, 4. And he gets a dive marker as well. So I don't think he could actually get into the same hex as the 44. Okay, so and finally we have our KI-44 up here, who is on his vector, so therefore will circle. Right, so we put the circling marker there as well. So I need to rearrange these displays. But essentially what we're looking at here for the combat phase, which comes immediately afterwards, is 2 combats. We have Battle Able, which will be here, and Battle Baker, which will be here. And need to remove those across to the battle display as well. So I'll do that. Right, we're here with the battle display. So here we have the Corsair, which sped off and then turned around, and then the Ki-44 that came in afterwards. I had the Ki-44 turning around as well, but he can't do that, I believe, because you have to stop once you enter the hex. Sorry, the square, not hex. So therefore, this is a head-on combat. I was just reading up the head-on rules, and actually, the previous combat on last turn should have been a head-on combat, and actually, it does have modifiers. It gives the defender and the attacker a -2, so it's less lethal. I looked through what the results were from last turn, and it didn't make any difference, but we'll run it from here anyway with the -2. Okay, right, so looking at this combat then, you want to see if as it's head on, it has to be done on speed, it can't be done on turn. Right, so one thing that the Corsair can do is it can evade. This means it's less likely to be damaged, and as we're up against a veteran expert flight, and it is a flight, this means that we might be able to get away with not so many losses. So yeah, so evasion is only possible if the defender has equal to or greater speed value, and of course with the show keys having a 6 and the Corsairs having a 6, therefore the Corsair can do this. So having taken that into account, so that gives us an extra -1, if you like, on both sides because of the evasion. But looking at the combat differentials to use, so there's no climbing or diving, but the Japanese are veteran, so they get a +1. So at the moment it's +1 -1 on the combat differential. There is for the attacker dice roll, there's a -2 for the head-on combat, which I'd forgotten before. -1 for the defender is evading, but +1 for the expert, so it's a -2. So +1 -2 here, and for the defender -2 for the head-on combat, -1 for defender evading, and that's, I believe, it. So -3. So the combat differential in total is Japanese +1 with modifiers of -2, and for the Corsairs, for the British, it's -1 with -3. So let's do those rolls. So it's Japanese first, their attacker. So that's an 11. The 11 +1 and -2 gives us a 9. A 9 on +1 is 2 losses. And on the British side of the -1 table with -3, that's absolutely nothing. So Corsairs are not doing well here. Actually, I've just realised that yes, it's I've made a mess here. The combat differential actually should be 0 for the two, because the Japanese is a flight. So actually, yeah, it should come out as 0. So both on the 0 table, there was an 11, comes down to a 9, which is still a 2, and then yeah, doesn't actually change the hits. So rolling for the hits on the Corsair, who is having a hell of a time here. First one, the firepower is +1, and it is an expert, so it's +2 on the losses roll. So first loss, a 2 + 2 is a 4. That's a straggler because it's equal to the 4-5 of protection rating of the Corsair. And the next one again +2 is a 1, which comes up to the 3, which is no loss. So we only have the straggler from that. I think the Corsair got away with it. Now we look for cohesion. So for the British, got 2 loss markers and wasn't attacking, and that's it. So we've got 2 dice -2 for the cohesion. That's a 6 going to a 4, and that's 1 level of cohesion. So they are disrupted. And that's the counter we use. On the KI-44, we have no losses. We are veteran, so it's +1, and they were the attacking side, so +2. +2 on 2 dice. A 7, 8, 9 is no cohesion loss. However, the ammunition does... Oh, actually we had an ammunition marker as well. That's significant. So the so that roll of a 7, which was +1 for veteran, but -1 for low ammo, +1 for the attacking side of combat, so it becomes an 8. That's no effect. With the British we had a 6, it's -2 for the loss markers, but also -1 for the low ammo marker. That turns into a 3, and a 3 means it breaks. So that's 2 levels of disruption. Okay, that pretty much takes out that Corsair from the combat. Right, let's just switch down to... we moved the ammo markers to depleted as well. So we move down to the Firefly, meeting the Hayabusa Oscar squadron coming in against, again, head-on combat. The Firefly is the attacker because the KI-43 hadn't spotted the Firefly. It does now, so we can put the tally marker on there. As an attacker, normally you have a choice of using turn or speed, but it's a head-on attack, so it has to be speed. The Firefly has a speed normally of 4 at this height. This is at level 8, so it's 4 right here. That's dropped to 3 because of the climb marker. So it's got 3 speed versus the Hayabusa. The Hayabusa has 5 speed with no modifiers here. So it's 3 to 5 at the moment. The Hayabusa is also it's not a veteran squadron, it does have an expert, so don't believe there are any other modifiers to the combat differential, so it's +2, -2. However, one thing that's relevant here is the Firefly has an ability called Edge with a little arrow. What that means is you all automatically shift in favour of the Firefly as a combat differential. So it's +2 versus -1 actually. And for attack of dice roll modifiers, it's head-on combat's -2. Defender's not evading. I don't think it's we're here to have a go at these British aircraft, so certainly not. And the attacker has an expert, so it's -2 +1, which is a -1. So it's on +1 with a -1 modifier. Oh, hang on, wait a minute, I'm getting mixed up. Yes, the Firefly is the attacker, head-on combat -2, and there isn't any other Yeah, there isn't any other modifiers, so it's on the -1 column with -2, and then the defender, which is the Hayabusa, -2 for head-on combat, and a +1 for the expert, so -1. So it's +1 differential, -1 on the dice. So if we get the dice out again, and for the British, which are on the -1 column with -2 on the dice, that's a 9 going to a 7. A 7 or -1 is actually a hit. There is a hit on the Hayabusa, and for the Japanese fighting back, they're on the +1 column with a -1. They've got an 8, so it goes to a 7, and that is also 1 loss. Right, so now the Firefly, the difference between the Firefly and the KO-43 might become apparent now, because with the Firefly's hit on the Hayabusa, that is going to be on the firepower, and the firepower of the Firefly is a 3, so it's +3 to the dice, and the protection of the Hayabusa is a 3 to 4, so it's very likely to score a hit. It's quite a light fighter, the Hayabusa, whereas the Firefly has cannons. So the 1 hit, we roll, and then we add 3. A 2 goes to a 5, that means it's a hit. And then conversely, the KO-43 uses the firepower of the Hayabusa, which is only a 1, and adds 1 for the expert, so +2 on the dice only. And the Firefly has a protection of 4, so slightly better. It's a hit anyway. Okay, so that's a loss on each. And then we also put in the ammo markers. But just before we do, we'll do the cohesion check. So for the Firefly, it's had 1 loss marker, and it was the attacking side in the combat, so that's -1 and +1, so it's just a straight roll. That's a 9, which means there is, nothing, no effect, they're fine. On the Hayabusa side, 1 loss marker, but it's not veteran, so it's just the -1, and it wasn't the attacking side, so that's a -1 for the cohesion table. That's only a 7, which goes to a 6, and that means that it is disrupted. Okay, those are the combats. I'm going to put the flights and squadrons back on the table and get on with the administrative phase. Right, and here we are, back as we were. So, pretty good turn for the Japanese again. We have a broken Corsair sweep squadron. But the Firefly and the KO-44 came out kind of evens, really, on that. On the administrative phase, we shall just have a look at what we need to do there. So we're not rolling anybody to escape. We're not creating escorts. Are we changing vectors for squadrons under GCI? So this squadron here, he should really spot at least that Corsair, but maybe we don't want to bother with that one. So I think we should try and change the vector here to somewhere down here, to maybe try and engage these escorts here, and maybe we can let these guys get to the bombers. So I'm going to try and change that. So we need greater than the GCI control. So I'd say where it's going first. So I think we try to go here maybe. Let's roll that. So it's a 5 or a 6, and no. So it doesn't take the advice of the ground controller. So he's sitting there. Here, again, possibly, well, during tally, he might see this. I think circling is quite a good idea because the bombers are going to come up here, I think. Let's see if we can move at least the vector just to there. But it's likely that he'll tally here. So again, a 5 or a 6 and a failure. So they are still circling. Right. And we're not changing any escorts to sweep, and we're not placing any flak barrage markers yet. We're not close enough. So that's the end of the turn. We move on to turn 4. And the setup phase again, there's nothing particularly to do. And so we're down to the tally phase. On the tally phase, do we want, I think we're quite happy, it's the Raider first. The Corsair, it's here. Yeah, he's actually broken. This means that he loses the tally on H. So that tally marker goes, and in fact he cannot use the tally marker again. He's not going to be able to tally everything. We actually remove the order and we place a return to base marker. Okay, so that's what we have now, and pretty much its mission is to get off the board from now on. Okay. So it doesn't tally. The KI-44 can keep its tally here. Should it though? Possibly not, because we'd rather get to the bombers as well. So we will drop the tally on H, return it here, and well, we won't worry about that yet because we need to do Raiders first. So yeah, having dealt with that Corsair, we have the fighters here. So the Firefly, does it need to keep that tally? To be honest, I don't really want the Firefly doing too much there anymore because it's on ammo low at the moment. I'll try and get through. So he will drop the tally and try and tally this fighter actually. Yeah, so the tally moves off here, and we need to roll anything but a 1, I think. I'm just worried about the fact that there's another unit in the hex, in the square. Actually, before that, I did forget it. Last turn as well, it's the decision on a dogfight here. There definitely isn't one up here because one side broke. So here, I'm not sure either really want a dogfight. I don't want the Japanese to be hung up on this sweep unit, and the Firefly can leave that to the escort and move on. So yeah, as you were, we don't want a dogfight, therefore we don't have a dogfight on either side. Yes, and I was checking the tallying capability. Yes, I thought that can't happen. It can't look for another tally when it has the tally on this. So but it will drop the tally anyway. And looking at the others, we have the Corsair and the two Hellcats here. So the Corsair here, I think, this guy already has a tally here, and I think we'll keep it. The Corsair will, I think, attempt to tally this KI-44, so it is 2 away, and the modifiers, I'm not sure there is any particular modifier that we have to worry about here. Yeah, because it's not on the same radio net as that Corsair, so it hasn't been told. Yeah, I think that's just about it. Yeah, it's just a straight roll, so we need greater than a 2. And we get a 1, so it doesn't see it. It stays on its sweep mission. Sorry, on its escort mission. And the Hellcat here, I'd really like that Hellcat to have a look for this KI-43. And that one, I think because this is covered, I think again, so 1, 2, 3 to see that the Hayabusa squadron, a 2 is a miss, and the one behind is 1, 2, 3, 4 is also a miss. So the escorts are still unaware of what's going on here. So that's on the Raider side. On the Defender side, the Japanese, again, I think we want to drop the tally here, because I don't think we care about the Firefly. And here, I think we'll try and spot the lead Avenger here. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it needs a 5 or a 6. Now, interesting thing in here is that it's part of a formation of 3 or more squadrons. So effectively, that's quite a lot of aircraft here in this area. So there is a +2 on the dice for that. So 1, 2, 3, 4 +2, 5 on the dice. 4 + 2 is 6. It does tally the lead Avenger. Right. And we are left with the KI-44 here, which is circling, and we weren't able to redirect the vector here, but let's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if we can spot this Hellcat. I think it's the closest. So 5 or a 6 on that. Yeah, nobody has a tally on that yet. So yeah, 5 or a 6 we need. A 1, definitely not. He's quite happy where he is, and wouldn't even have spotted the Corsair squadron bugging out there. Right, so that's our tallies done. Then we move on to movement, in which we start with the sweep squadrons here, and here. So we'll just move the displays out for a moment. I'll reset them after the move. And then the bombers. So 1, 2. Now, because there's a tally here, this fighter, which will stop circling, can actually move right now, and I think it will move 1, 2 to spend the time there in the sun, and then down. So we have a dive out of the sun. the Ki-43 here, which is nicely done, I think. Then we move the so this has actually moved into the Avengers space, so the escorts have the ability to possibly react. And in actual fact, they cannot react. The reason being is that this is a head-on attack, so effectively the escorts don't have time to do anything about it. So yeah, it gets past the escorts by diving straight in to the front of the formation. So let's keep moving with the Avengers, and that's the bombers and the intercepts and the escorts moving. So then we're down to initiative order for alerted fighters. So lowest first, that's the lowest altitude of this Ki-44, and actually I didn't actually attempt a tally with him, which I should have done. I've ignored him. So I will do that tally first. So he would attempt to tally the bomber that was there. If we like, move this guy back, and that should be anything but a 1, and it's a 3. So there is a tally here. So the Ki letter I, place the tally on S. This means that when that moves, this Ki-44 can then move. So he will move a half, which is straight down as a half, and then 1.5, and then enter that square. Now, there is now the Corsair, which had tallied the Ki-44, it still keeps a dive because it dived another level. This Corsair can move. Also, these escorts can now react because it's not a head-on attack. So this escort will move half, 1, 2, 3 as well, and it dived. This Corsair on escort could also attempt to react, and actually I'm doing this slightly wrong. We put the this Corsair back where it was. When this Ki-44 attempts to move into the Avengers, well, that's when this Corsair could react. So let's look at that. Okay, so it's 2 dice rolls, and we're using this part of the player aid card here. So we need to roll a 6 or more to react. That is a react where before the attacking flight gets into the bomber's hex square. Keep doing that, terrible. The escort actually stops it, so it actually has combat in the square next to the bomber. A 2 for 5 for a late reaction, that is a reaction into the square with the bomber. So our modifiers are +1 for veteran or -1 for green. Neither of those is the case. The enemy are behind the escort squadron. Yes, that's true. And each square the escort is distant is -1. So it's -1, 2, 3, 4, -4. Escort squadron, yeah, there's nothing about radios, high speed jets, no, and weather modifiers, no. So there's a -4 on the roll, but it is 2 dice. So that's a 5. 5 minus 4 is a 1. It doesn't react. We've got quite a few sleepy squadrons here at the moment. How about the Hellcat? 1, 2, 3. It also has a minus 4 because it's 3 plus it's behind. So a minus 4 for that Hellcat. Gets a 1 as well. So no. And should we try this Hellcat? 2, 3, 4. That's 4. That's minus 5. And a 7 minus 5 is a 2. And a 2 means a late reaction. Right, so let's organise that. Right, so simply what we do is to move that Hellcat into this square with the Avenger, and we have the Ki-44 in as well. What we can then do is we can move the Corsair also into that combat because it has tallied the Ki-44 flight. Yeah, so we actually have the 3 squadrons here. However, the combat here, I'll have to sort out who's the attacker and the defender. With the escorts, the defenders, it's a less reaction, but as we've got the following Corsair as well, we'll have to see. So we've completed these 2. Also the Hellcat, which was here, which is B, switches from escort to sweep. Now it's no longer an escort, it is sweeping. Right here, the Firefly, which has the lower speed, moves first. And I think the Firefly wants to dive away from this, I think. So get rid of the climb marker, in fact, turn it into a dive marker. And it may want to start to think about 2, 3 into the cloud, because we want to start looking at the flak suppression here with its cannon. This leaves us next with the Ki-43, the Oscar here. It hasn't spotted anybody, but it does have free movement. And I think what we will do is climb to get behind the formation. So when climbing, we need to look at the climb value here for the number of movement points. Oh, I just realised I didn't do that for the Firefly, did I? And the Firefly would have cost 2 movement points. Well, it's a bit late to do that now. So the Ki-43 is 2 movement points at this level. So 2 and 3. So and he has a climb marker. Right. Our Ki-44 up here is circling, I'm afraid, because he doesn't know what else to do. This Corsair is heading for home, so we'll move 3, head for home. The Ki-44, I think we've dropped the tally, so we have free movement. And I think again we will go 1, 2, 3. We're trying to get behind the bombers here, 3, and we'll dive for 4. Yeah. So there was, there's an error with the Firefly there for the combat in turn 3, but never mind. So I'm missing a few things here, and also calling squares hexagons as well. So maybe not quite doing so well. Right, so that's our movement. We do have two combats, here and here. And okay, let's. This needs to be reorganised, and then we've got to move over to the battle display anyway. So I'll do that off camera. These are the two combats, Abel and Baker. So this is the one at the front. Baker here is the at the front of the bomber stream, and we just have the Avenger here with the Shoki diving on it, head-on combat, and this is a veteran. So we'll do this one first. It's the easiest one, just because I want to. And so the combat is, let's see the differentials here. So the Shoki, the first thing we need to do is find out, is it going to be turning or a speed base, and it has to be speed based because it's coming head on, so there's no chance of doing turning anyway. So we look at the Avenger here, and we have speed and turn of 3, -1 of course because it's laden with bombs, so it's only a 2. And the Shoki is on a speed is actually a 6, and of course it's diving, so that becomes a 7. So yeah, it's quite a differential there. So we're on the maximum here, +4, -4. Although we may have some some modifiers here. I think the only thing is that the TBF, the Avenger, is a veteran, so it becomes a 7-3, which is still a +4. So +4 and -4. Attacker dice rolls -2 on head-on combat. It is a bounce, so it's -1 then, and I think that's about it. So yeah, so it's a -1, +4, -1. The Defender, its head-on combat's a -2. The attacker has bounced, so that's -3. And the defense rating, so the defense rating is a 0, so that adds nothing. So it's a +4, -1, and a -4, -3. So the +4, -1. Oh, we only have a 4. A 4 going to a 3 is a blank, a complete miss. And then for the -4, -3, well, I think it's going to be a miss. Definitely is. Even with a 12, I think that would be a miss as well. So there are no actual losses at all. The cohesion table. So for the Avenger, it's +1 for being a veteran, no losses, and that's it really. So yeah, so +1, and it's 2 dice. And as you can see on here, the bomber actually has a slightly different table. It's much more forgiving. So that's a 9. A 9 + 1, 10, which is no cohesion loss, which is really what the Japanese were looking for. And then with the fighter, we have, on attacking side, you get a +1. So +1, a 6, +1 is 7. That means no cohesion change either. Okay, so, well, kind of a blank combat really there. The only difference being that there's a ammunition low marker now on each of the squadrons. Now we come up to the rather messy, complicated one. So the first thing, of course, is that this Corsair was following the Hayabusa here. Is the Hayabusa? No, sorry, that was the Shoki. Ah, this was actually a Hayabusa. Not that it made much difference at all, really. No, it was all blank anyway, so yeah, that didn't make any difference. I actually had the wrong fighter, but this is the Shoki, the Tojo. Um, it is the attacker because there is a bomber in the square. So whoever has the bomber in the square is the defender. So this, of course, is the competent, and I think we will choose the Corsair as the defending combatant here. So the Shoki has a speed of 6, and as does the Corsair. Actually, I'm wondering. Well, yeah, we'll keep it the Corsair. We could use the Hellcat because it has veteran. I'm not sure the speed is better than having the veteran actually. So yeah, we'll use the Hellcat instead because it's a veteran, and the Hellcat is a 6 anyway. So speed 6, speed 6. This is a 7 though, and this becomes a 7 as well. Just checking out if we've got any other modifiers on the combat. So we need to know, is the Tojo using speed or turn? I think speed, because it's its best rating, and the Hellcat will actually be better than it at a turn. So each additional fighter, squadron or flight, so there is an additional fighter squadron, so it's +1 for that. The squadron is veteran, +1 for that, so 6, 7, 8. And also on the Shoki side, this is only a flight, so it's -1. So 6 becomes a 5. So 8 versus 5 is actually a differential +3, -3. Okay, so the attacker dice rolls, this is the Japanese side. It's not head-on combat. It's not a bounce. I don't see that there's anything to particularly add or subtract. So it's a straight roll on the -3. And on the defender dice roll, we don't have an expert or anything like that. We have the defense rating, but it's a defense rating of 0. So, hang on, 6, 7. Actually, it's not +3. Let's do that. 6, 7, and flight 6 versus 6, 7, 8. So it's only +2, -2 actually. +2, -2, and yeah, I don't think there is any modifiers on either side. So +2 and -2. So -2 is actually the attack. It's the Japanese. They roll a 7. On -2 is a blank. And if we roll for the defense, which is +2. Oh, look at that. That is a 12. Right. So a +2, a 12 is, wow, it's a 4. That's 4 losses on to that Shoki. Okay. So we're using the Hellcat. The Hellcat has a firepower of 2, and that's all we need to worry about. And the Shoki has a protection of 4. So a dice +2 against 4. So 4 rolls here. 5, that's a loss. Where are we here? A 1 +2 is 3 is a miss. The next one, a 6, that's another loss. And the final hit, it's a 4, 5, 6, that's another loss. So 3 losses there. Okay. Right, so just want to check something with the scenario on the max losses of a Japanese is flight is 4, so it's got 1 plane left effectively. Let's roll the cohesion hits for everybody. So that's all the participants. So and everybody gets an ammo marker. And this one already has one. Oh, actually, I didn't know that actually the Shoki was a veteran as well. So interesting. That might change things. Yeah. So it's a +1 -1. Right. So that would actually be 1 hit on the Allied side and only 3. So I'll re-roll these. Missed that veteran symbol there. So on the British side, the primary combatant is the Hellcat. So the Hellcat, the Shoki has a firepower of 1, and that's all. So we roll for that. A 6. That's a loss. So let's just put that on the Hellcat at the moment. I think we can distribute that. But anyway, let's do the 3 on the Shoki. So where we were before, which is +2 against a 4. So a 4, that's a hit, because it's +2. A 4, that's another hit, and a 4, that's another hit. So yeah, as we were really. Still 3 losses there. Okay, so let me just have a look at that, where we put the losses for the British side. Right, actually, what happens is it's the enemy squadron that decides where the loss goes. So I think we will put it onto the Avenger, absolutely. So that's 1 bomber knocked out. Okay, so cohesion checks. We'll do the Japanese first. So 3 losses, that's a -3, but it is a veteran, so it's -3, -2, and it was attacking, so it's a -1. It was on a low ammo marker though, so that's a -2. So 2 dice, -2. A 7 -2 is a 6. A 6 is, sorry, -2 is a 5, sorry. I can't even count now. So that is disrupted. Okay. And for the cohesion check, for the Hellcat, it's veteran, so it's a +1. And that's all. So a +1 on the roll. We have a 7, +1, 8 is nothing. For the Corsair, it's just a straight roll, no losses. 11 is fine. And for the Avenger, we have 1 loss, so that is -1, and that's it. And that's an 11, so yeah, no effect there at all with the loss of 1. Okay, so now what I can do is I can move these back to the game board, and let's see where we are. Oh, yeah, and I'll do the tallies as well, the auto tallies as well, I think. Yeah, so that shouldn't be it. Oh, not that one. That should have a tally there as well. Okay. Right, I'll do the reset. Right, one thing we need to check, only in this square, is whether a dogfight occurs. Now, a dogfight won't involve the bomber, so there's no point in the Japanese wanting to have a dogfight. I think the Allies definitely will want to do a dogfight, because they want to just tie up this guy. And so I think it's a yes/no. So it's on a comparison dice roll. So it's basic speed against basic speed, and we're using the Hellcat against the Shoki, and it's +1. Oh no, we'll use the Corsair. So it's yeah, 6+1 and 6+1. So it's a straight roll. So the Americans roll. So put that here just briefly. The Americans roll, as with British roll, sorry, is a 3, and the Japanese roll is a 2. So the British win that. I believe the British win this. Yeah, because they want the dogfight and they're equal to or greater than. So a dogfight occurs. So what we then do is we put this marker in here, and it's subject to some special movement rules next turn. Okay, so on to the administrative phase, and this is a little bit too close to escape, so we won't roll there. Escort markers on eligible squadrons. So no, I don't think we need to do anything like that yet. We need to resolve what goes on in here before we do that. Any change of vectors, well, nobody's using vectors anymore except for this one up here. So yes, maybe we should. So we need to roll greater than a 4. And we do roll a 5. Where did we want to put it? We probably wanted to put it somewhere down here, I think. Yeah. So we moved the vector. Should have decided where to go first, but it's pretty obvious that we need to drop in height, I think, to follow H down as well. Okay, so I think that's all. Whether we want to place flak barrage markers. So if I zoom out here and move slightly across, we can see that our Firefly unit is getting a little close here, and we've got some heavy flak here. So I think we may well put some some flak barrages up. Right, so looking at some barrage markers here, we can place 1 square away from heavy flak. So we can place up, oops, that's the wrong side. Possibly what we do is we place it on an apex. So in this case we place it here, or possibly here. So it covers these 4 squares. The light flak here can only place it adjacent to its own square. So we can maybe place 1 here and 1 here, just above the balloons. Yes, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, there's the scenario special rules which say that the flak gets a -1 on direct attacks. So a barrage would be a better thing to do, I think. So we've placed those, and I think that's about it for the turn. It is. So we move on to turn 5, and I'll end the video here. And this sort of 2-turn thing seems to work for this particular scenario. Anyway, I had to roll back a few times there, so still picking all the rules up, and yeah, hopefully it's still clear what's going on, although of course it's turning into quite a melee over there in the sky. But until turn 5, I'll see you next video. Thanks for watching.